Hey guys, so I'm finally recording the video on how to insert a busk. The first thing you need to know is that there's always a directionality to your busk. It has a top, a bottom, a right side, and a wrong side. So as you can see, when you're looking at this head on, the left side has the loops and the right side has the knobs. When you're putting it on yourself, then it will be the other way around. When you're, say, looking at yourself in the mirror, you'll see the knob side will be in your left hand and the loop side will be in your right hand. So don't get that confused, because when you're inserting a busk in the corset, it will look the opposite way as when you're actually putting the corset on yourself. As well, you can see that on the loop side here, you can actually see that the loops are attached on this side with two little rivets, and then on the other side you just see the little ends of those rivets. So this side, where the metal is attached, that's actually the front, and this part here is the back side. Now when you're looking at the knob side, you'll see that they're not actually right in the center. They're actually a little bit offset to the left here. So when you're putting the busk on, you'll notice if it doesn't have any fabric in between it, you'll see a gap in the middle like this. So that is not an error in the manufacturing of the busk. It's supposed to be that way. This leaves the room for the fabric to go in between the busk bones. Because if you try to put it the other way, you'll notice that there's no space in between them. So when you try to insert the busk with fabric around it and then do it up when you're trying to put on your corset, it's not going to fit properly. The last thing I want to point your attention to is the fact that these two loops and knobs at the bottom are closer together. Some busks, they have all their loops and knobs equidistant from one another, but some, like this one, it has the knobs closer together, and this always goes at the bottom. For anybody who has lower tummy pooch, this helps control it a little bit easier. Okay, so here are the first panels, and they're already cut out and prepared. What I had done to prepare them, I used the Chinese brocade, and I had ironed on the fusible woven medium weight interfacing all over this Chinese brocade on the underside, on the wrong side of it, and then I cut out the panels. After that, I also cut out a panel of kuti, and then I had basted all around the edges, so I flat lined it. And then after that was done, I retraced, if you can see that, I'm not sure if it will show up on the camera, I retraced the actual pattern piece so that I know where my sewing line is. And so I did that 4 times. So what I'll actually have when I have my finished corset is the first panel will be both decorated the same way on the inside and the outside. You don't have to do that, I just like the look of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to label my panel pieces, whether they're the knob side or the loop side. And you can see the busk is a little bit too short actually for these pattern pieces. So after I insert them, I will have to trim the pattern pieces down so that they fit snugly. But that's okay. I mean, what can you do about that? So I'm just going to deal with the loop side first, and then I'll go on to the knob side. Okay, so what I had done here is I had labeled, this is the loop side, and that's going to be on the front, like that. And then I have the loop side lining labeled here. So the first thing you want to do is line up this edge right here along the edge that you're going to sew along. This straight edge here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually mark the 2 edges of the busk here. So the top and the bottom. The next thing you're going to do is take your pencil and mark each side of the loop. Sorry, I'm left-handed. I should have planned this out a little bit better, but I'll show you after I'm done. Okay, so as you can see, I have the sewing line here in pink, and I had labeled the top and the bottom of the busk here. And where I have these little nicks here, the little marks with pencil, is where I'm not going to sew because I want to make a hole there for these guys to go through. So you're just going to sew along these larger gaps right in here, and you want to lock stitch it and stitch it really, really well because this is an area that's going to hold a lot of the stress. So I would probably sew it 2 or 3 times over. So let me just do that right now. And here's my pin cushion slash voodoo doll. Just kidding on the voodoo doll part. Right now I have my fashion and lining pieces, which pretty much look the same. They're just mirror images of one another. And I've pinned them right sides together, lining up the stitching lines in the center front. The panel that has the marks for where the loops are going to go is facing up, so I can use them as my sewing guides. Remember, I'm stitching in the large gaps between the marks, and I'm leaving the smaller gaps unstitched so it forms a hole through which the metal loops can fit. In the large gaps you stitch, backstitch it at the start and the stop point to make sure it won't come loose. Also, sew over that same gap multiple times with slightly different stitch lengths on your machine, say a 3 and then a 2. This is called a lock stitch, and it's very difficult to come apart. Once you're done with the stitching, trim all the little threads so they don't poke through once you insert the busk. It just looks neater this way. Alright, so now we're done. You can see I've sewn along this line, then left this part open, sewn along here, left this part open, etc. So let me just go press this open, and then we'll test the fit of this with the busk. Okay, I'm back, and here it is, nicely pressed. And now for the moment of truth. Will it fit? And there we go. So just pull it through nice and snug. And it fits pretty much like a glove. So I'm pretty happy about that. So the next thing you need to do is just to take some pins and secure the busk right in there. Get it right as close to the edge as you possibly can, and then use your zipper foot to secure it down, all the way down on the other side. Now, you need to be extremely careful while you're doing this because if your needle hits the busk, it will break and it may fly at your face. So just be careful about that. I'm going to attach these panels to the rest of the corset before I secure it in because I do the inside out flip pillowcase method of putting the corset together. So once I'm done that, I'll be back with the rest of this. What I'm doing right now is switching my zipper foot from the left side to the right side. If you have one of those really skinny zipper feet, then you don't have to do this. You just have to move your needle over so that it's sewing on the right side of the foot. Remember, you always want to sew with the fashion fabric facing up so you can clearly see how neat your seams are while you're sewing. Use your right hand to keep the busk snug next to the edge of the panel so it doesn't inch out of the holes you just made, and sew as close as possible to the other side of the busk. Go slowly and keep your seam straight. You only have to stitch this part once because the seam isn't going to take very much tension, it's just keeping the busk in place. And now you're finished inserting the loop side of the busk.